Hello, everyone, and welcome in Crowded Booth Week 10 recap on a fantastic early November Monday night. We appreciate you. My name is Bryce Koon. We got Will Menace, Ralph Leary coming up as we take a look at some of the crazy games, new contenders emerging. We're going to talk about some of the biggest games. And we're also going to give our preview of where we go with our top four right after this on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Welcome in, everyone. We're going to, I guess bring in Ralph and Will at this point. How you guys doing on a fantastic Monday evening?
I'm tired. I'm very tired.
Oh, okay. Mr. 175K a day, going to talk about being tired.
He's tired of lugging that money all across town. That's what it is.
Hey, I actually had someone tell me today, he says, man, I do your job. I read the news. I'm like, oh, I'm glad you read the news, sir, but this is not the best job in the world.
He what? Does your job? He reads the news?
He goes, I would do your job. I read the news. I was like,
okay.
I was like, okay.
I got you.
I understand. Come on, let's go. Let's
I
learn styles, bud.
If you haven't already, join the Discord. Ralph, I just saw that you posted this picture of me in the Discord.
Wait,
which
I
is
didn't see
absolutely
that.
wild.
You haven't seen it, Will? Oh, it's
Wild.
And I like that one guy goes, how long you been holding this? It's been quite.
Yeah, that's
a
our
while.
boy. That's our boy Klingle. That's our boy Drippy. He changed his name to Brent Keys Zencan.
I think mine's
Oh my!
We're not showing the picture, Dr. Bob. You got to go to the Discord. It's a good chance for you to head and down to the link in the description to go there and see what's going on. Bryce Koon, Will Menace, my name's Ralph Leary. We appreciate you so much for tuning in on a Monday. Yeah, I don't know what we're preaching. We appreciate you so much for tuning in on a Monday
did you
evening.
Just say your name is Ralph Leary? I think you did.
I have no clue.
Let's go ahead
Not
and
a clue.
restart this stream.
Yeah, I'm just devastated. LSU losing by 6 right now to Colorado. Did you know Deion Sanders' daughter plays for Colorado?
Did not know that, and also didn't care.
I was going.
Yeah,
who asked? You're watching paint
Yeah.
dry over there.
I will say, if you got to watch paint dry, this is the best kind of paint to watch.
That is
I will say
point.
that. I will
Fair
say
point.
that. Hey, we're excited to talk a little bit of college football here tonight, and a big Week 10. I want to start it off with this because we're going into this game. I think first off, Alabama LSU, and before we get into it, I've been to some pretty good atmospheres. Will, you and I were at the 2017 Auburn Georgia game. I would say the LSU Auburn game this year, the atmosphere was unbelievable. That is on Saturday night, the best atmosphere I have ever been in a college football stadium. And I want to say this too, because I feel like Bryant-Denny does not get its due in what, when we talk about the premier venues, premier atmospheres, environments in the country. That was the loudest I have ever been. Like, the Rammer Jammer chant that you do at the end, the stadium was shaking. It's 100,000 plus in that stadium. And the difference is that it's all enclosed. And you guys know this. Like, I think that's what helps Auburn out a little bit in the sense of just being around, what is it, Will, 86, 87,000? I mean, it's loud. 88, 84. It's 88,000. So it's, probably 12,000 less than your LSU's, your Alabama's. But it's huge in the sense of when you have that enclosure, it gets louder. LSU's kind of open at one end a little bit. Alabama is a fortress. Like, it is so tall. The atmosphere was unbelievable. Garrett Nussmeier, when he came off the field after a timeout late in the football game, took over for Jaden Daniels. We're going to talk all about this. He was, touching the sides of his helmet like he could not hear anything. So I don't know, man. I've been in some really cool atmospheres. That was nuts.
You're right. I mean, Bryant-Denny's a great home field advantage. I think that gets overlooked. I mean, teams don't go in there and win. I mean, it's a reason. Texas was the first team in like 30, 35, 40 games, however long it was, that won at Alabama. So it takes a great team, a great performance to do it.
Was the last Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss?
He was the last
with Chad Kelly
to beat Saban back to back. I know that.
Well, was he the last one to win in Bryant-Denny? I think though. No, LSU was 2019. Joe Burrow.
Yeah, that's true. Which that was, and LSU people down here will tell me that was the true game of the century. That 2019 game, compared to the 9-6. They don't like the
Give me
9-6 one.
9-6.
9-6. Well, let's jump into it because this game was far from the 9-6 battles that we have seen in the prior history. And I will say this: Josh Pate said this on a show last night, and I got the chance to talk with him about this. And he said this on the show last night. Like, this is one of the best college football games every single year. Kind of even regardless of record. Like, even when LSU was down a little bit, it was still a really, really uber competitive game because of the talent. So that being said, Alabama makes a statement with a win over LSU. I'll defer to you guys first, and then I'll give my kind of takes on it from the LSU side of things. I think I can just say this from a perspective: quarterbacks dominated. And Will, then I'll let you go. I mean, the quarterbacks just put on a show. Your thoughts on this football game?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we knew that coming in. That was going to be the key. How does Jaden Daniels play on the road? I mean, he's got experience, but you talk about that home field advantage for Alabama. How would he react to that? He's never been in an environment like that. And he was really good. 15 of 24, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Led LSU in rushing, 163 yards on the ground and a touchdown. We knew it was going to be the quarterbacks. Jalen Milroe, I mean, they pretty much passing, they were dead even. Milroe was 15 of 23 for 219 yards. Same yards. He didn't throw for a touchdown, but man, he ran for 4 of them, had 155 on the ground. I think we've seen it. We know the recipe to beat Alabama. It takes elite quarterback play, and it takes it for 4 quarters. And this was very much a game. It was going to be a 4-quarter game until Jaden Daniels unfortunately went down with injury. But this was everything you like if you love offensive football. Both teams were incredibly efficient. Alabama over 500 yards, LSU 478 against a really, really stout Alabama defense. And I don't think enough's being talked about the Alabama defense. The last 5 games, they've given up 7 or less in the second half in every single one. And I want to say 2 of them, I think Ole Miss may just be the only one, where they gave up 0 in the second half. No surprise with Kevin Steele. I watched him do it at Auburn for a number of years. He was there. His defenses get better as the game goes along. He is so good at adjustments. He knows exactly how to shut down offenses if they have a big first half. And this was a really fun game. I just hate Daniels went down injured. That made it a bigger game than it was. But Alabama, they're still around. We'll talk more about that later. But they're really good, and they get better every week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that's going to be one of our storyline pieces for the evening, talking about Alabama and title aspirations. Which, I mean, we're not going to really spoil it, but they're still in front of them. It definitely is, and they really kind of hold a nice advantage. They passed a big test in this one against LSU. Ralph, your thoughts on this matchup? Will alluded to it. I mean, this game was just electric in the first half, and it really was a game for 3 quarters, and then the tipped interception really hurt. I think it's more of a great play by Dallas Turner than necessarily a bad play from Jaden Daniels, but it's an example, and I'll get into it in a little bit, of where this LSU offense just can't blink because the defense is just putrid. They just can't blink. If they blink, it's over. So I'll give my thoughts on that, but your kind of thoughts on the game overall, what you saw.
Well, I mean, for one, I'll say this about Alabama. Jam Miller, who is just freakishly fast. He made some plays early on in the game. I thought that he was going to probably be the breakout running back in this game, and then they kind of just stopped using him, and just had Milroe just scrambling, and that obviously was working very well for them. And he played extremely well. I texted you right before the show started, Bryce. I said it's crazy how similar their stats were. I mean, it really is. I mean, Daniels had 1 more pass than Milroe did. They had the same amount of yards. I mean, rushing yards about the same. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, both quarterbacks played extremely well, and I think that's what we thought it was going to be, a quarterback duel, and it really was. But I thought Alabama's defense stepped up at the right time. Can you make the one stop late in the game? Can you be there, make that one play, and force a turnover late in the game? That's what Alabama does well. They've always done well, and I think it's one thing we always kind of forget to do. But then you look back at it like, why did I ever say that? We should never doubt Nick Saban in a quote unquote revenge game, because that's when he's probably playing. That's when he's coaching at his best, and that's when this team's playing at the best. Because no matter who it is, they want to play that revenge game every year.
Yeah, and look, you're right in the fact of it's an Alabama team. Will alluded to this a little bit, that they don't get many opportunities to welcome in a team that they lost to. into Bryant-Denny Stadium and also maybe still feel threatened. Like I think a lot of Alabama fans were kind of worried about what LSU's offense could do against them. So it wasn't necessarily like you felt like it was one of those games like they're going to play Kentucky. I think that game's in Lexington, though. But they're going to play their opponents where they, they're going to welcome in, and it's going to be a good environment. But this was unbelievable. So, yes, to your point, very, very big in that sense. Will, what were you going to say then?
Talk about this Alabama defense. They really made LSU one-dimensional. If you just look at the numbers, you see LSU had 206 rushing yards. 163 of those were from Jaden Daniels. So they really locked down on that run game. They shut down the running back, shut down Logan Diggs, Josh Williams, John Emery, who are all really good. Emery only had one carry, but, I mean, all Diggs and Williams are really, really good running backs. They shut down that run, made them one-dimensional, and, they did a really good job. You've got Neighbors and Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., probably both can be NFL guys. They keyed in on one, Brian Thomas, because they know you're not going to stop both of them. If you key in on one, you got a much better shot, and that was the game plan, and they executed it to perfection.
Yeah, they were really physical with LSU's receivers, and I had a feeling coming in, and we talked about this last week, that Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terry and Arnold, Malachi Moore, veteran guy back on the back end, and all of these guys have multiple years of experience. Like Kool-Aid McKinstry is going to probably be a round 1 draft pick. At least round 2. I mean, just with, the intangibles that he brings to the table. So you knew they were going to be physical. They did a really, really good job of that. The biggest story that I think coming out of this was just the mistakes. Just LSU made too many mental errors, too many physical mistakes as well. I was really disappointed, I think, in the fact that you had 3 snap infraction penalties. You had a lot of false starts, or you had some false starts and some illegal motions. I mean, you just had some stuff that, look, LSU struggled with this same thing at home against Auburn. So it's not like it was just the road environment. Give credit to Alabama's crowd. It was fantastic. This is a problem for this offense. So, I think that second half, you get outscored. What was it? 28-7, 21-7 in the second half, I believe.
21-7.
21-7. You don't score if you're LSU after the first drive of the second half. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of disappointing things. Defensively, this team is who they are. I mean, it's so similar, guys, to when I talk about LSU's defense as I talk about Georgia Tech's defense. You're going to have to make big plays. You're going to have to make momentum-shifting type of plays. They didn't do this in this football game. I will tell you this. If you'd have told me Jermaine Burton was going to have 3 catches for 29 yards, I would have absolutely been like, LSU probably going to win the football game, because that was the guy. If they got him going, these corners didn't play all that bad. This front 7 is completely disappointing.
Yeah.
Mason Smith, all due respect to the guy that tore his ACL last year, that's a tough injury to come back from, not only physically but mentally. But he's standing straight up. He might be a little heavy, and he's not really providing anything. Losing Mekhi Wingo really, really hurt this team. But if losing Mekhi Wingo did this to this group, they weren't really as good or highly touted as we maybe thought they were. So I think, I'm disappointed in that. Brian Kelly said today in the press conference, and I tweeted out his response to my question about this, of him saying essentially, I asked him the question because Greg Penn said, we just have a bunch of guys not doing their jobs. And from a player, that's kind of okay, that's you being accountable, and calling out your teammates. Kelly has mentioned that after the Florida State loss and the Ole Miss loss, and then he mentioned it again. So I asked him the question, I said, do you credit that to just really good teams? Because, look, they've lost to 3 really, really good football teams. Mm-hmm. Or is this more of an internal issue? And he pretty much went on this rant of talking about how when you don't have guys showing up for tutoring sessions, when you don't have guys showing up for practices, when you don't have this happening, you can't be a great football program. And in Tuscaloosa, kids aren't missing tutoring sessions because they understand what's at stake. So I think, and I put on there's still some trimming of the fat for this LSU program to do. I think Brian Kelly's completely fine to being the head coach here. He's just got to kind of get some things going. So, could you probably have won this football game? I think so. A lot of different things, but you kind of still see the gap between being a really, really good, great football team and being one of the best in the country. So that's kind of where I sit in that. And any kind of thoughts on that?
Well, I just looking ahead for LSU, they've got 3 home games left. Florida, going to be a tough game. Florida,
physical football game. Yeah,
physical. They didn't look great against Arkansas for most of that game. Got off to a slow start and ended up losing the game. But they're a tough team. Very, very tough opponent. Very winnable game for Florida to go.
And that's a rivalry game too. So it's anything can happen.
Georgia State. We've seen Georgia State go into SEC stadiums and win games. Can't sleep on them. And then Texas A&M. Those are 3 teams that you cannot beat yourself. You cannot have those illegal snaps, the false starts, illegal motions. You can't beat yourself to beat any of those teams. You can't just sleepwalk and beat them.
Georgia State got blasted by James Madison, by the way, this weekend. So, but it's still a good football team. Still
lucky for them, that doesn't hurt them. It doesn't hurt them in the Sun Belt East race either, because the NCAA makes no sense.
And also, Georgia Southern lost on Saturday, so they also have a chance to.
Oh wow,
Texas State. Oh, TJ Finley. Quick question, Bryce, about LSU's defense. Was Whit Weeks was he hurt?
Okay, so this is where I sit with this. No,
I mean, he's a very great linebacker.
And I know that we're 16 minutes in the show, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I think this is obviously one of the biggest games of the weekend and determines a lot. So it's fine that we talk about this. But Whit Weeks, the fact that he didn't play in the game was puzzling to me, because you have essentially schemed out Harold Perkins, because of he's just not really a factor. Yes, his season stats look good, but he hasn't had the eye-popping moments that we saw last year. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration of the LSU fan base is it feels like empty stats, because it's not like he hasn't had, if you remember the Alabama game last year, that chase down tackle of Bryce Young, Texas State quarterback now. What's his name? That was at Arkansas last year. The backup.
Malik Hornsby.
In that game, that was a really close game. He had a massive sack against Malik Hornsby, who's one of the fastest players in college football, and Perkins got to him. So a lot of different plays where he just hasn't made that. So, Ralph, to your point, I like Greg Penn. I want to be careful.
He did play good.
I want to be careful about what I say about Omar Spates. I think that Spates was an all Pac-12 linebacker. I know that he was last year. And I think it's an example of a guy, when he transfers up to a level, he just doesn't quite live up to what he thought he could do to boost his draft stock. It just hasn't been there. And so I would have liked to see Weeks. I mean, because Weeks as a freshman is one of the more solid tacklers. Let's end it right here with this. For this conversation, Alabama makes a big statement win. LSU, like you mentioned, Will, they still got a lot to play for. Double-digit wins and back-to-back seasons coming from where they were is a really good 30,000.
I don't care where you came from. That's really good for anybody.
It's really good. LSU fans are. I will say this: I understand the sentiment why they're upset, because this is a championship-level offense, and you feel like if you could have just done, aside from the Florida State loss, you could have beat Ole Miss. You probably could have beat Alabama. Florida State dominated you after halftime. That was really not close after that one. So
that's a top 4 Florida State team, by the way.
I mean, yeah, for some of us, I think it's top 4. I don't know if it is for Will. I think they're on the outside looking in. I don't remember. Maybe they are. Maybe they're third. So we all agree, playoff caliber team. The last part of it here, we're going to wrap up first 20 minutes talking about this football game, but that's fine. It was a great one. The Dallas Turner hit. I want to get y'all's guys' thoughts on this, because I think that for me, I'll give my thoughts and then I'll go to you. I don't think Dallas Turner's a dirty football player. I think that's completely overblown. No great defensive football player thinks to themselves, how can I hit this guy in a polite way? That's not something people do. The great football players, the James Harrisons of the world, the Ray Lewises, when you look at great defensive football players that play violent, but not in a dirty way. So I don't think the hit was dirty. I agreed with the roughing the passer call. I want to get y'all's opinion on this, because whether or not it's targeting, I just have an issue with the inconsistencies of the call. I just feel like we have seen targeting called for way less, and you typically and usually see targeting calls as soon as a quarterback's helmet is hit. You just see them throw the flag and then go to the review. It was kind of weird to see them hold the flag for that particular penalty and really not review it. They told Brian Kelly postgame to say, we just felt like there wasn't enough to review. So, Will, I'll start with you on that. I'm not saying it was de facto targeting. I just feel like we've seen it called for less, and I hate the way this rule is enforced. It's just, there's no consistency to it.
Yeah, I agree. I hate the targeting rule, but y'all know me. I like old school football. I like defense. I like running the ball. That's why I love Air Force, and they let me down against Army on Saturday. But 15, 20 years ago, that's probably not even a flag. I mean, the way the game was played.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a problem with it. By the letter of the law, absolutely it's roughing the passer. He drove him into the ground, but I don't think there was any ill intent. He didn't want to take him out of the game. He's just trying to put a good lick on the quarterback, because he was dicing him up and really, really taking it to that Alabama defense. They were trying to do something, get him off his game, hit him hard. I mean, guys, they're playing in the heat of the moment. They get frustrated when they getting diced up like that. So he's just trying to make a play.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was dirty. I do agree with you. I think Dallas Turner's a great football player. Ralph, your thoughts on this? I mean, how did you feel about it? I mean, in an idea of targeting and everything. I mean, I kind of thought a lot. When you get to kind of the letter of the law per se and what that rule looks like, I mean, it checks some boxes for sure.
Yeah.
Like when you looked at it, I mean, I don't know. I just hate how the rules enforced. There's not a lot of consistency to it. And then obviously the outcome makes it even worse because LSU fans are like, well, it knocked them out of the game. It changed the whole complexion of the football game because if I'm not mistaken, I want to go back and look at this drive chart. You had the pick, and then the very next drive is when he goes out of the game. So it's like one of those things where it's like it just. I mean, you really. I'm not saying you would have won the football game with Jane Daniels in the fourth quarter because there's no guarantee your defense would stop them. But man, and no disrespect to Derek Nussmeier, that's not a winnable situation for him to come into. So Ralph, your thoughts on this?
I'm about the same with y'all on this situation. Like, I want an actual written out version of what targeting really is because we've never seen it. I mean, technically, I've seen targeting calls that don't ever get called. We watched, for last 5-6 years where guys are getting just drilled, and they'll say, well, that's not targeting because he didn't technically lower his head, but then the next play or next 2 drives later, someone's quarterback gets hit hard and they call targeting, and it's just. You don't ever really see an answer to it. And then so I don't think it's targeting. I don't think it's dirty. I don't think Dallas Turner is a dirty player. I think it's more of it's just a football play. It's Jaden Daniels, maybe if he's scrambling and gets hit and he's running like that, it's a whole different hit. It's a whole different situation. He's just the way he's a taller quarterback. Turner hits him right in the chest. His head just hits him right right under the chin. It just happens like that. So going forward, this situation, you hear a lot is like, yeah, that's dirty. I know LSU fans probably think it's really dirty, but that's just them being biased and want to be, and just are upset about it. It's just, but any other player would be upset about that. Bryce, you're muted, by the way.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. I think it's something where obviously the fan base and then the outcome of what happened. I mean, you hate to see a guy have to leave a football game, especially. And we'll talk about this later in the week. I mean, I think that there's going to be a large case made for him that if they can finish the season 9-3, where he at least deserves a seat in New York, if he plays. And I'm not out on that. I'm not out on that.
I saw a Heisman power ranking today by On3. He is number 1. So
okay.
I think he'll be in New York.
At least,
especially if they win out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams won it last year, and USC went 9-3. Also, I know you're not listening to this because this is not the Go 24/7 podcast, but Alex Grinch got fired. Brian Kelly, Matt House should be the next one to go. All right. Anyways, let's keep rolling with the next thing there. Yeah, you got to make a change. Absolutely ridiculous. Georgia passes a test against Missouri. I think this is a game that I thought Will was mad at me, honestly, because he just stopped responding. But then he's like, I got stuff to do. I don't have time to sit in a group chat and text you all day.
No. I was sitting at work texting you about that. So no, fine. I was.
And then you went back to building airplanes.
Engines.
Yeah.
Which type?
Pratt and Whitney,
okay.
Gear Turbo fan.
All right, cool. There we go. Giving out.
There's your aviation minute.
Yeah, aviation minute brought to you by Aviation Will, Aviator Will. Hey, once again, before we get started on this game is presented to you by Manus LLC Loans. If you need one, make sure to call and get that going. But hey, let's rock and roll. Georgia passes a test against Missouri, guys. This is a game where. Well, I think, and I will give you the benefit of the doubt. I did not get to sit down and watch this full football game. I viewed it more in the sense of Georgia beat a good Missouri team. Like it's a good Missouri football team that hung around. And guys, I mean, it was a game where Luther Burden really didn't go off. Really didn't have the eye-popping statistical performance. And hello Palmer, good to see you. I think, in all honesty. It's a good win for Georgia. For me, it is it's a win for them that shows that they're just continuing to find a way. Are they a team that over maybe 2 years ago was just going to beat teams into submission? No, that's not who they are, and that's fine. I think everyone has a run of where they're able to do that. I don't think this Georgia team does that, but they're finding ways to win, and I think you got to give them credit for that. So I don't know. I sit there. This is a good football win for them. They're going to go. Obviously, they're going to college game days there this weekend. And it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be really, really good, though. This is obviously a big piece. Kamari Lassiter with incredible performance. Big concern was Jamon Dumas-Johnson out going forward. Palmer, let me know who the guy stepping in that role will be as I hand it over to Will. Will, your thoughts on this game? Because I thought that you kind of felt Georgia didn't look as good as maybe people just – because it's really easy for people to say, well, Georgia got a ranked win finally. And I get that. So, I think your argument was pretty valid in that.
Yeah, I mean, and, thinking back – what I was texting you and then thinking about what I said on the show last week, it's pretty much what I expected before the game. I didn't think Georgia would cover the 2-touchdown spread. They didn't. I thought Missouri was a good team. They're really good on their defensive line. They would shut down the run. For the most part, they did. Georgia only ran for 131 yards, which against that defensive front, that's nothing to hang your head about. But you kind of felt like this was a game where Georgia could dominate, even though Missouri ranked number 12 in the country, that they could just impose their will on them, and they didn't. And that's more of a credit to Missouri than a slight on Georgia.
Yeah.
You look Cody Schrader ran for 112 yards on Georgia, but their defensive game plan was to shut down Luther Burden and try to shut down that passing game. We've talked about it all year. Missouri's got too many weapons on the outside with Theo Weiss, Mookie Cooper. You're not going to completely shut them down. Brady Cook's too good of a quarterback, but he wasn't great. 14 of 30, threw for 212 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 pick, but they did a really nice job on Burden, only 3 catches. He did have a touchdown. But, I mean, if you're holding Luther Burden to 3 catches and 53 yards, you got to feel really good about it.
Yeah.
Theo Weiss, 5 catches, 90 yards. They held Mookie Cooper to 2 yards. So their game plan on defense was to try to slow down that passing game, and they did a really, really good job of that. You score 30 points, you're going to be happy about that no matter who you're playing, no matter what. Just about no matter whoever you're playing, especially in the SEC, you're going to feel good about scoring 30. Carson Beck was good. He was crisp, 21 of 32, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And your guy, Ladd McConkey, back.
Lunchpail Ladd, baby.
Totally, fully back, 7 catches, 95 yards, filling in for Brock Bowers. And even Oscar Delp caught a touchdown pass filling in for Bowers. So, you're right. You said it, Georgia. They find ways to win. That's the mark of a really good football team. And they're right there. I mean, they're a top 4 team. We've got a quarterfinal game, we'll call it, setting up for a quarterfinal game first weekend of December in Atlanta.
Yeah, this weekend's going to be huge. I mean, massive. If Ole Miss wants to try to keep pace and look, they're going to be big Auburn fans in 2 weeks and, 2 or 3 weeks too. Ole Miss has got to get this win. And 2, you talk about a team in Ole Miss that, look, no one's really talking about them, but, they're definitely in the playoff to me if they win out. If they beat number 1 Georgia and then they potentially beat a number 1 Georgia or a top 5 Georgia team, that would probably be top 5, top 6 Georgia again. I mean, that's a playoff team. So I think that's really interesting. Ralph, your thoughts on this football game where I think we all kind of agree. I mean, Georgia's just finding ways to win and – you feel good about it. You feel really good about it.
Yeah, Georgia played a great game, honestly. Just overall, Carson Beck looked great. I think that, they had a great game plan going in. Obviously Missouri's just a really good team, though. We can't not what Missouri's done this year. Cody Schrader's played a great game. Just played great all year. But he's a very underrated running back, and I hope he has a future next year in the NFL when he gets to go there, gets a chance to go because. He plays hard. He reminds me a lot of Isaiah Pacheco. Just my favorite saying about him is that he just looks like he hates the ground when he runs. He just runs hard. But yeah, for Georgia though, Ladd McConkey 7 for 95. That's just normal McConkey just doing his thing. Ra Thomas played a great game. Just Georgia's doing their normal thing. Going out there, not having the one guy to go out there and have a Brock Bowers game where he has 9 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. You don't need that. We can just dish it out and just play your own game. Control the clock. Late in the game they just had the ball and felt like they had the ball the fourth quarter the whole entire time. And shout out to the Zier Stackhouse. I mean, big man pick. You gotta love that. Always. You love to see a big man run the ball downfield. It's comical in some instances, but that's a lineman dream. You get a chance for an interception and almost take it to the house, and that's just it was awesome. It was a great game. I think it was a very underrated game too for a lot of fans who think that Georgia Missouri wasn't a good because Alabama and LSU was playing not at the same time, but it was right before. It was a great game. It really was fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you see what Georgia was able to do. I mean, look at some of the things. I mean, I think there's things they want to be better at. Probably on third downs, they were 6 of 13. Rushing yards. I mean, I don't think that Kirby Smart's going to feel comfortable with running for 131 yards, against a lot of these teams. But I think altogether, I mean, what you're seeing, they found a way to win. Brady Cook didn't light them up by any means. Give credit to Missouri. I mean, they got pressure on Carson Beck. And I will say this: I don't know if Carson Beck looked amazing. I think he made some plays when he needed to make them. He made some throws, but to not necessarily be, I would say, have your A-plus performance or your A game out there and still throw for 254, 2 touchdowns, I think is a testament to how talented he is and what he can be and what we saw, throughout the month of October for Georgia. So big win for Georgia. It kind of sets them up, obviously, this weekend to have another feather in the resume, a feather in the hat here to really knock one off, and it's going to be very, very interesting to watch as well. So let's keep rolling. Next game takes us to the Big 12, which this was mine ones to watch. Guys, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this because we're already getting late here in the show. Oklahoma State went, guys, from kind of an afterthought after a loss to South Alabama. Okay? Oklahoma was not ranked in last week's AP poll.
Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma shouldn't be after this. Oklahoma State wasn't ranked. No, I'm just kidding. Oklahoma State was not ranked in last week's AP poll. Guys, the Pokes have a chance to go to the Big 12 title game, and you know that Mike Gundy loved beating this. This is all I'm going to say, and then you can give your thoughts on it. We'll move on because we don't have a lot of Sooner and Poke fans here. But did you guys see that they played as the crowd was rushing the field? "We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together" by Taylor Swift, which is absolutely hilarious because both teams have been trolling each other about leaving the Big 12 and all that kind of stuff. Big win. I like Mike Gundy. I mean, I just think he's one of those coaches that has found a niche where he is, and they're gonna ride with him until he wants to be done. And I'm glad that he was able to turn, because this season kind of looked weird in the beginning, like the first 5 weeks. Jonesy says he's a man. He's 40. So Bedlam, if it is the last time, man, it was one to remember. Ralph, we'll start with you. Any kind of thoughts on this one other than the fact it was just a fun game and we're going to miss it?
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. Was pulling for Oklahoma State all the way. I mean, this game and this season, I think it shows you just how good of a coach Mike Gundy is. And I think he's been really, really underrated for sticking out there in Stillwater at Oklahoma State for so long. Playing with the hearts of a lot of SEC fans, mine included. And Tennessee, more notably. But man, to evolve, we've seen him in the past really lean into air raid and air it out, which is more his DNA, being former quarterback. And this year, in the last couple of years, really leaning on that run game. Ollie Gordon, man, I think he's got to be one of the top running backs in the country.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Pretty happy to see Oklahoma season pretty much done. I mean, they'll get a bowl game. They'll probably get a pretty high profile bowl game, but I think that pretty much knocks them out of the Big 12 title race. They need some help, no doubt about it. But nice to see them lose.
Yeah, nice to see them lose. Ralph, any final thoughts on this game as we move along to one more game to recap?
Yeah, just rest in peace to Bedlam. I mean, that's just
great rivalry.
It's been one of my favorite rivalries to watch the past few years. Shout out Wendell Barfield. I mean, me and him have always been a big Bedlam fan for the last 3 years. So it's a hard one to lose. It really is. I know people A&M fans are excited for Texas coming back. The A&M Texas rivalries when we get back.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be a fun one to watch. But losing that Oklahoma State one, it's a hard one to lose. So hopefully they bring it back somehow. Maybe in the future. Once every 2-3 years, maybe it'd be kind of cool. So
it would be. I don't know if Oklahoma's going to want to do that.
I think I was reading or hearing that it's at least going to be gone for 10 years.
Oh,
which is how do they've already got it schedules made for the next 10 years. That is
well, and then too, if the SEC decides to go to 9 conference games, that's going to even potentially push it even further. It's going to be very, very interesting. Hey, last game on the docket here. We take it to the ACC and the almost ACC team. Look, I mentioned this in last night's show because Georgia Tech plays Clemson this weekend. Guys, this is a really good win for Clemson. Notre Dame is a team that is, I think they're just gassed. We used to make jokes about Notre Dame just not playing good schedules. Guys, they played a really good schedule this year. And it's been a really, really tough road for them. Sam Hartman, Dabo Sweeney, and is just Sam Hartman's father. Sam Hartman's now 0-5 against Clemson in his career, just kind of reverted back to some of those things. So I don't know, man. I think that it's a good win for Clemson. They still have to. They got to make some changes. Like they got to add some talent in the offseason. But I don't think that the win over a win over Georgia Tech, a win over South Carolina, or a win over UNC would make the fan base feel better than it makes this win, because I just think Notre Dame, it holds more brand value. Notre Dame was a pretty solid team coming into this one. And I think it's a good win for Clemson. They're going to have to lean on the run game. My only takeaway is Phil Maffa is unbelievable. Phil Maffa was unbelievable.
He was the backup running back, by the way. And I
just run with Will. You might as well say, and we might say, just run the triple option with let
with
Will
Shipley and
yeah. I think coaches overthink it way too much. Go with what works.
Hey, also, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is an absolute freak of nature for his performance on Saturday. I mean, 11 total tackles, 7 solo, 2 sacks, and 2.5 tackles for loss, and I had a pick 6, I think.
Kid's going to play in the NFL, man.
Yeah, dude's a freak.
He's a freak. He's an absolute freak. And a big reason, shout out to Troup County, why 4-star safety Noah Dixon's going to school there. Because when you see a guy like Trotter that can just play like that, very, very, very nice. So, Ralph or Will, any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Notre Dame outgains Clemson 329 to 285. You should win every game when you have that big of a yard advantage. But the big key, Notre Dame 5 penalties for 40 yards. Clemson 0 penalties. Call it what you want. Home cooking. It was in Death Valley. Call it what you want. But Notre Dame, they were 3 of 13 on third downs. Clemson not much better at 5 of 15, so you didn't really have that advantage. But that's really what sticks out to me. This just Clemson just controlled this game. They just controlled it, and really Notre Dame felt like they didn't have a shot at all in this game.
Hey, Week 10 was a lot of fun. When we come back, we're going to take a look at 2 storylines that have a lot to do here with college football. We doing something crazy? What's going on?
No, if we're going to run an ad, you just didn't tell me which one it was going to be.
So, Ralph, we do this thing called a show rundown. And I can see that you're not on the Google Doc.
I did not have it pulled up. Sorry.
Just think about what happens when you bathe. Think if you're going to bathe.
Yeah, gotcha.
Your soap is ugh, and your body wash is a synthetic detergent. But you're not a dish. You're a man. Switch to Dr. Squatch Natural Soap for Men. For men who build things. Open pickle jars on the first try. Slay dragons. And let their daughters braid their hair. Men who like to feel good and smell titillating. Dr. Squatch takes you places you never thought you'd go. Naked.
All right, back here in the crowded booth, make sure to use code Bryce Koon for 10% off your order at Dr. Squatch. Fantastic stuff, especially Christmas time. I like the candy cane. And I'll tell you, we're not going to use products here. We're not going to sell products that we don't use. Will doesn't use it, but Will, you got to get yourself some.
Yeah, I need some of that. I've got I kind of buy.
Don't even tell me what
I'm
you're
not.
buying.
I'm just going to say I kind of buy in bulk some things, and soap is one of those things. So when that runs down, I think I'll be getting some Dr. Squatch.
It's worth it. It really is. I mean, it really it's good stuff. So make sure you check it out. All right, let's get to our storylines. We're doing this each and every single Monday. Kind of some themes that come out of the weekend. We're going to start with what we kind of led the show off with. And it's really about Alabama and this Crimson Tide team. Is Alabama a title contender? I looked at a lot of the Vegas odds this week. They jumped up. They did jump up in a lot of the, odds. I know, Will, you mentioned that you were kind of feeling like you wanted to put them in there at 4, but at least on the precipice of that. You even kind of felt like they should jump Georgia in a lot of sense. I will say this. There's a case for it. Like, I do agree with you. This is a vastly different football team than the one that made USF look like an SEC team. Vastly different. An offensive line, I'll say that was a weakness, was a strength on Saturday night. So I think that overall, is Alabama a title contender? Yes, because I do believe it's going to be Alabama and Georgia in the SEC title game. I think that Georgia's going to have about a month to figure out, after they get past this game, the Tennessee game, they're going to have, 2 weeks to really kind of figure out what you're going to do with Jalen Milroe. Palmer mentioned earlier in the comments. I mean, you don't have Jamon Dumas-Johnson, so that's a really key figure out. So if Alabama wins the SEC title with 1 loss, and now especially with Texas potentially now winning a Big 12 title, if your only loss is to them and they get in too, I mean, we'll see how things shake out. I don't know. Will, your thoughts on this? I mean, I think they are, and I think they're trending in the right direction. They're playing their best football here in the month of November.
Short answer for me is absolutely. I mean, they've gotten better every week. I've said it every week. Teams have had their chance. Ole Miss had a shot to do it. Texas A&M had the best chance to do it, couldn't do it. Arkansas nearly did it. Tennessee probably should have done it, but they blew the game. Good teams like this, you got to kill them early. You got to get to them early, and nobody has done it. Alabama, they just have gotten better every single week, and you know me, it hurts me to say that because I hate to admit that how good they are, but they're good, and they do it in a different way. They're doing it running the ball and playing defense, kind of old school way, especially for Nick Saban. And I remember saying it early in the year. This offense, give them a little bit of time. It's a new quarterback. It's a new play caller. Give them time to gel. And we've seen these last couple games, I think starting the second half against Tennessee, or maybe even a little bit against Arkansas, Tommy Rees has figured out what works for this offense, what works for Jalen Milroe. And, I mean, he called a heck of a game against LSU. He called a great game, but I think some of that probably was Milroe going off script, making plays because he's a playmaking quarterback. So you've got good quarterback, really good quarterback play. You're figuring out your passing game. You've got an elite defense. There is no doubt that they're a title contender. And, there's probably two teams that Ohio State, Georgia, Washington, Florida State, that they don't want to see make the playoff. Alabama's one of them, and I think the other is Oregon. Two teams that have been quiet, kind of sleeping all year long. They're still not out of it. So if they you don't want to see those two make the top four if you're Ohio State, Georgia, Florida State, just because of the threat they bring.
And two teams that you just mentioned already have losses on the resume, so they're playing with their backs against the wall.
Yep.
And so, they can't – they know they don't really have that margin for error. Ralph, your thoughts on this? Is Alabama a title contender? And if they are, what do you like most about this team? I know we talked about it in the opening with that LSU recap, but what do you like most about this team and how well they're playing?
Yeah, absolutely they are. I mean, every week since week 2 when they played Texas, they've gotten 1,000 times better. Actually, I'll say it's week 3. When they played South Florida and played probably the worst game we witnessed all year by Alabama, and they've just proceedingly gotten better every week. You go back and look at that game, and you think, why was Miller not even playing in that game? You probably think, was he hurt? Was Saban just trying to see what looks different? But he's the best coach of all time, and he's gone and done incredible things with this team that we thought that this was a down year for Bama. Everyone thought this is going to be a down year for this offense. Milroe can't throw. Milroe can't, be a starting quarterback in the SEC. He's proved everyone wrong once again. This is what Saban does year in, year out. Milroe's done a terrific job this year. I just said again, he's gotten better week in, week out. And they're not having that dominant run game that they used to have with a 1-2 back system where they're just running you down, running down your throat every play. They have 3 or 4 guys that just can break one off if they need to, or get the 3 yards, get the first down. It's a solid offense this year, and they're not the same receiving crew that we're used to seeing. I mean, you go back and look years ago, like in 2019 when they had Waddle, Smith, Ruggs, and all those guys. I mean, just a solid. I mean, one of the greatest receiving crews we've seen in a long time. And this year they're just like they're good receivers, but they're not great, and they're still winning games very well in dominant fashion. So what Alabama's done this year is incredible. I mean, Caleb Downs is a true freshman secondary player. He's playing some of the best football in the SEC right now at a top level as a 18, 19-year-old. It's incredible. I mean, this is what Nick Saban's great at. So, absolutely, they're a title contender, and they're going to get better week in, week out. But they still got to play Auburn.
Yeah, I was talking with some of the Alabama writers about that.
Keep in mind who said that.
Yeah,
keep in mind who made that point.
Yeah,
this guy right here.
Yeah. Not me.
No. I was talking with some Alabama writers about that, and they said, yeah, I mean, like, this is great, but and a lot of them who have been around the beat for a while, they said, you got to go down there. Like, if it was in Tuscaloosa, okay, double digit win, it feels like. Down there, he said, it's we'll see. So, they got Kentucky. They're going to play Chattanooga in 2 weeks. The Fighting Mocs out of the SoCon, the Dirty Noog, home to that. They're going to play Chattanooga. They're going to play Auburn, and then they'll potentially get to an SEC title game and win that one, and then they're in the playoff. I do agree with you, Will. I like what you said. Oregon and Alabama are 2 teams I don't think anybody else wants to see in the playoff, and it's not necessarily I think that you want to see Washington by any means or Georgia. It's just you just don't want to see 2 teams that are really starting to heat up. So I do agree with that. Let's get to our next storyline here. And this is one that I think a lot of the Tech fans in the chat will enjoy, because who's going to challenge FSU in the ACC? Guys, Georgia Tech is tied for third in the ACC with like 17 other teams. So right now, Florida State, I believe, clinched their spot in Charlotte for the end of the season after a win against Pitt. I think they played.
They did. They've had one more conference game, and it's this week against Miami. The other, I was taking a peek at it, Louisville, Georgia Tech, Duke, and North Carolina, I think all have 3. So Florida State's in.
Boston College is also somehow still in this.
They are
race.
Just
it's nuts. It's nuts to think about.
They beat Syracuse on Friday night, didn't they?
Yeah, Syracuse. We were going to do a segment trending down. Syracuse lost 5 straight games. Yeah, they're
a better team than that.
They're a better team. They went through a really rough portion of their schedule. So all of this is, look, Louisville won this past weekend without Jawar Jordan and out Jamari Thrash. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say that they're a great football team, but Louisville is one of those things where it's like, I don't think they're like amazing, but it's hard to argue they're not a top 15 team.
They find a way to win.
Yeah, it's just like Jack Plummer is not a sexy quarterback. Okay, he's not like going to go out there and throw for 400 yards. But they just kind of find ways to do stuff, and it's weird.
Have you seen the Jeff Brom clip when he's playing quarterback in the XFL? Have you seen this?
On the sideline, they did like the in-game interviews.
Like, how are you playing in this game? Well, I'll answer your question with a question. Do I have a pulse? And is this the XFL? That tells you all. That tells me all I need to know about Jeff Brom, and why Louisville's continue to win games. That mentality is incredible, and it shows that they can get through anything. That crew is really playing for this guy, and he really wants to win.
Also, and I know Ralph's got some company over who is a fan of his former team. This guy won at Purdue. Like, you don't really win at Purdue. Like, this guy won.
Shout out to the Purdue Boilermakers over here.
Yeah. No, we don't need him on the show. But this guy, Jeff Brom, won at Purdue. And this is why I picked Georgia Tech to lose to Louisville based off of an experienced coach against an inexperienced. Jeff Brom is a really good football coach. And one thing we're seeing is he is a really, really great in-game coach. So I ask you this, and Dr. Brom, you can crunch the numbers here if you want. I don't know if there are 15 or 20 better in-game coaches than Jeff Brom. I don't know. And that's just completely off the top of my head. Like, I'm just saying, I don't know if there are, because like the in-game adjustments, this guy, like you said, Will played, was a very successful player. I don't know. So I do think it's Louisville. And I'll ask you this. Do we all kind of agree it's going to be Louisville and Florida State in the ACC title game?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go to, you don't?
No.
You don't? Okay, go. That's fine. Because I wanted to go. Are you taking Georgia Tech?
I'm taking Georgia Tech. Look.
All right, we're getting out of here.
No, give it to him. Go.
It's going to be tough. But Georgia Tech, they've got momentum. 2 straight wins. They beat North Carolina 46-42 in that just bonkers game. They go and hang 45 on Virginia, pull away and beat them. They got a lot of momentum.
Really good win, by the way. Really
They've got a lot of momentum going into Clemson. I kind of have a feeling. I got a feeling here they're going to make something happen. They get Clemson at noon. You don't have to go into Death Valley at night. That's a big advantage. Then they come back home to play Syracuse. That's it in ACC play. I think they'll handle Syracuse. Syracuse is reeling. They're done.
Here we go.
You look at Louisville's
remaining fans.
It is favorable. Yes, they have Virginia this week. They should handle that. But they have to go to Miami. Nobody's thought about Miami. Nobody's thinking about them.
But here's the thing.
Nobody's going to be that game.
They got to lose 2 games if you're Louisville.
What the?
Because of the tiebreaker.
So Virginia's going to have, I don't know what that was. You got to lose 2 games.
Hold on. Let me look at what's Virginia done lately before they lost to
They beat North Carolina 2 weeks ago.
They beat North Carolina. They lost a tight one at Miami. Things can happen here. The ACC's still open. That second spot is still open.
It's a Thursday night game too, baby. It's a Thursday night game. Crazy things happen.
And I've been ragging on Georgia Tech and ragging on Brent Key all year, but they're third in the ACC. They're not out of it. There's belief. I see it. I see it with all the people in the Discord. I see it with everybody, all these fans. There's belief, and you know how I feel about a team that believes can do anything. I've seen it so many times.
Honestly, Will, like out of the three of us, you should be a Georgia Tech fan because there's a ton of similarities between like Georgia Tech
There
being
is.
a constant little brother and Auburn.
I've said it. I've always liked Georgia Tech's always been my ACC team. Always, even as
I want a
bad
bowl
as they
game.
are.
I want an Auburn Georgia Tech bowl game.
Even before they were running triple option, when Reggie Ball freaking tore up Auburn in 2003 and 2005, I was liking Georgia Tech. I'm getting PTSD and I'm getting too fired up.
Oh my gosh!
Look,
Can't read that one
the ACC is complete chaos. I think Florida State is very, very like head and shoulders the class of the conference. They're just finding ways to win. I don't know, Will. Like, I mean, I thought that you guys would laugh when I kind of brought up the fact that they are in like tied for third in the ACC. But you kind of start to look at it, and also too, like I have no clue what the tiebreakers are going to be because like if Duke finishes with 2 conference losses and so does Georgia Tech, like how does that work? Like does Duke have to beat UNC to like would that give them the head to head? I have no clue. I don't know.
I don't know if it's points for or points allowed. But if Louisville Louisville will have to lose twice, so it doesn't really matter. But Georgia Tech, they've scored 201 points this year. Louisville only 186, but they still have the head-to-head win. So
yeah,
kind of makes it a moot point. And then Georgia Tech has the head-to-head over North Carolina. So
you know, it'd be nuts. Listen to this: is if Boston College wins out, so does Georgia Tech. Louisville loses 2 games in Boston College because they beat Georgia Tech in a CW nooner. In Atlanta goes to the ACC title game.
I mean, think about that. I'm not watching that game.
So okay,
that'd be a kickoff on a Friday night. No one's gonna watch.
I don't put it on a Tuesday night. Maction, put Maction above it, please. I don't know, man.
ESPN Plus.
I am glad you brought that up, though, Will, because I didn't know if we were going to go chalk. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see. So. Who knows?
It's going to be tough. They need help. They need help from Virginia and Miami, but they've put themselves in a position to be there. I mean, is
it crazy to think about this team's like a couple plays away from being 6-2?
Yeah.
Like I'm fine with saying they lost to Ole Miss. I'm fine with saying they lost to Louisville. You probably could have won the rest of your games and should have.
Yeah, they could have beat Louisville. And they Boston College was a winnable game.
The only game that got out of hand was Bowling Green.
This is the same thing we're talking about. We're talking about a team that could be playing Florida State in the ACC championship game, lost to Bowling Green at home.
I don't know, man.
Not on the road, at home.
I don't know. It's crazy to think about. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we do, we are going to come back and we're going to talk top 4. Obviously, it's released tomorrow night. We're going to react to those rankings first thing on Wednesday evening, but we're going to give you our top 4 as we roll into the final segment of tonight's show. Hey, everyone. Bryce Koon here with the Crowded Booth, and I'm excited to partner with Milton and Drew McCluskey as they get on their new venture, the Cajun Cousins Company. It's an all-stop shop for some of the best food and atmosphere entertainment that you're going to be able to have, especially this fall as college football is right around the corner. What is Cajun Cousins Company? Well, Milt decided to start this business back in Columbia, South Carolina. That's where they're based out of. Drew initially joined him after spending some time with the Saints, but they offer catered Cajun delicacies such as crawfish boils and Aunt Dottie's jambalaya. They bring everything and they can set up anywhere. Look, folks, they're passionate about giving people a reason to gather and to get to the culture that they love so much. They're expanding that brand to the low country of South Carolina, the upstate area, and other areas of the Southeast. So look, if you're going to throw that tailgate party or you're going to have a big gathering, reach out to Cajun Cousins Company today over at CajunCousinsCO.com to get that quote. Tell them the Crowded Booth sent you. We can't wait to see what they have in store this fall. All right, back here in the Crowded Booth on a fantastic Monday evening talking college football. It's been a fantastic show. If you haven't already, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Completely free for you to do. It just helps us out in that YouTube algorithm. Also, shout out to Georgia Tech fans. Nearly 100 live viewers concurrently, and that was fantastic. We enjoyed that. Get the numbers up. Continue to support the show. And look, even during the offseason, guys, I'm still trying to settle on how I want to do it, but I still want to keep rolling with college ball live shows. I mean, especially with transfer portal in December and bowl games and stuff like that. So we're going to figure out what we're going to do. All right, let's rock and roll here with our top 4. Will, we'll go to yours first. Your top 4. Walk us through why you made this decision and where we go from here.
Yeah, a little shakeup. I got Ohio State at 1, Georgia at 2, Florida State 3, Washington 4. Or Ohio State, they covered against Rutgers. Georgia did not cover against Missouri. That's kind of the thinking there. Ohio State did what everybody expected them to. Georgia, maybe a little bit less. Florida State, because they're Florida State. Yep, Air Force is out. Air Force is not even on the list. Washington slides in at number 4. You know, this Michigan sign stealing stuff to me just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. I know the NCAA came out today and said that they don't link Harbaugh with any of it. I don't understand that, but I've thought from the beginning he is at the very minimum going to be hit with lack of institutional control. And then the Big Ten gave a notice to Michigan today that they're going to get some sort of punishment. It just keeps looking like it's getting worse. And, you know, I really hate to do it because that's a really good group of players. But, you know, I don't know how they're going to make the top 4. The committees, they've already come out and said, even if the Big Ten or the NCAA doesn't do any discipline, they may take it into their own hands and leave them out of the top 4. So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen to them. They're definitely talent-wise probably should be top 4, and they've handled everybody they played. But that's not the only stuff. It's just looking worse.
Yeah, no, I like what you went with there. I like what you went. Ralph, your top 4, where are you rolling with us?
I saw you just change yours, by the way.
Yeah, I just changed mine. I've done that every single week we've done this. So, but keep going.
You changed it because what Will just said. I agree.
I changed it for another reason that I'm going to give you, but keep going.
I'm going Michigan 1, Georgia 2, Ohio State 3, and Florida State 4. Michigan, to me, right now, is still one of the best teams in the country. They haven't really played their toughest part of the schedule yet. They're getting close to it. I think it's this week, right? They play Penn State this weekend, I think.
Yep.
So this is
maybe.
Big noon Saturday.
Oh, great. I love that. This is where we get to see their, the start of the schedule. Honestly, this is where we finally get to see what Michigan's, capable of. Even though with what's going on right now behind the scenes, I know it's rough. I don't know. We talk about this before the show, guys. Don't read the comments, and here we are.
Yeah.
Look at both of you.
Yeah. I mean, that's a hard one not to read, honestly, but keep going.
Georgia 2 right now. I think Georgia's still the best team in the country. I have them at 2 right now because Michigan's just doing what they're supposed to do. This is what they've done it all year long against the teams that aren't that great, just taking care of business. Ohio State 3. I mean, Ohio State's still a good team. Their defense has improved so much this year. I'm just impressed with what they've done so far, and I'm hoping that will they backdoor themselves into the playoffs if they lose to Michigan? Who knows? Probably will again. Florida State 4. Florida State to me is still the number 1 team in the ACC, hands down. They're going to cakewalk the rest of their schedule and probably play whoever's in the ACC championship game and easily win that one and be in the playoffs probably at 2 or 3. So.
I'll say this: I don't think the 2 Big Ten teams get in. I think that there's going to be a case for
no chance.
I don't know if they do. I think last year there was a better case for it, but the Big 12 is going to be very interesting to watch. Just kind of what happens with that. We'll see. Obviously, here's my top 4, and I changed it because I'm going to go Georgia, Ohio State, Washington, Michigan. I do want to say one thing about Michigan: they haven't played really anybody yet, but they have not allowed a first down inside the 10-yard line this year. That's nuts. Like, that's crazy to think about. No team has gained a first down inside the 10.
You say they hadn't played anybody. Check out UNLV. Their only loss is to Michigan.
Will loves.
I'm just saying.
Will might be president of the Crowded Booth Sickos Committee. He might be.
I'm just saying.
You're right. You're right. No, you are right in that. I mean, so I got Georgia 1. I think the win over Missouri holds. I'll say this is my reasoning.
Sorry, facts and info's got to correct me. Sorry about that. 7-2.
Yeah. No. So let's go with this. We'll go over an hour here. That's fine. We'll keep it under an hour and 5 minutes. Let's go with this right here, guys, because this is my thought process for putting Georgia 1. I think that when you look at strength of schedule, Ohio State's lost a little bit of luster, and the Notre Dame win doesn't really mean maybe as much as it did then. So I think that maybe has lost a little bit of the shine on that one. I think Georgia's win against Missouri, although like you said, Will, didn't cover. I like that win more than I like the win over Rutgers. I think Missouri's a better team than Rutgers on a neutral field. Now, give credit to Rutgers. This game was like 9-7. Like this game was 9-7. I mean, and
totally
it was
agree.
crazy.
And I'm a big Rutgers fan.
You like Greg Schiano.
I do.
Short-term Tennessee head coach there, Greg Schiano. So I got Georgia, Ohio State 1-2. I will say this about Ohio State. Outside of the Western Kentucky game, that offense has not looked explosive. They're having to win football games with Travion Henderson and a great defense, and that's fine. It's just not what we're used to. I don't think Kyle McCord's the answer for this program going forward. I think that they may have to look elsewhere. I think just being the elite program like they were last year, like I think last year that was a national championship team that they put on the field with C.J. Stroud at quarterback, and we're also seeing, what C.J. Stroud's doing. Guys looked unbelievable in the NFL. Dude, so glad I picked him up in fantasy this week.
48 fantasy points for me yesterday.
Ridiculous. So that being said, I got Ohio State 2. I'm going Washington 3 here, guys, because they just continue to win football games. Yes, they're not going to do it defensively, but I think that this is what I think. I think they're LSU with a better defense. I think Michael Penix is a great quarterback. I think they have really good receivers. I love what they're able to do. I'm putting Michigan 4 only because I think while Florida State's still winning football games, they're struggling a little bit. Now, look, they didn't have Johnny Wilson. They didn't have Keon Coleman. They didn't have – oh my gosh, what's the other kid's name? He's from Louisiana that became eligible this year after spending like 2 years in between limbo. They literally had their gadget guy being their number one receiver. So they didn't really have what they wanted. But I do agree with you, Will. Like if the hammer comes down on them in some form or fashion, my 4 would be Georgia, Ohio State, Washington, Florida State. But I think Michigan, we're going to see this weekend, what it looks like. So it's going to be a lot of fun to really watch those games as well. Destin Hill, Dr. Bob there. Fantastic story, by the way, on Destin Hill. Literally had to just sit out for like a year and a half. It was crazy. Let's wrap it up here. Ralph, you can take that banner off. Hey, make sure you subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the show, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, After the Fact. That is Will Mannis. He is Ralph Leary. My name is Bryce Koon. Thanks so much for tuning in on a fantastic Monday. We're going to be live again Wednesday night previewing Week 11, picks and predictions. Make sure you join that show, and we will see you next time here on The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.